we're still on the topic of ecosystems. This episode introduces a valuable tool called the string tool.
Let's talk about ecosystems, but the inside of the ecosystems. What happens inside ecosystems? We have tasks and tasks and tasks, big ones, small ones, but there's tasks and there's a lot of people participating in different tasks, and the whole idea is to get the tasks to task completion point and achieving some end result. So I'm going to teach you a very nice tool today that is called the string tool.
The string tool is a simple tool that is easy to make. You only need a string, red, blue, orange and white cardboard, an A2 paper, a marker, colored stickers, scissors, a stapler, and some pegs. Although it's a very simple tool, the string tool can prevent serious misunderstandings. Los Rodeos Airport, March 27th, 1977. The chain of events leading up to the biggest disaster in the aviation history began early in the day at the Los Palmos Airport in the Canary Islands. A military group set off a small bomb, and air traffic was then rerouted to the much smaller Los Rodeos Airport. It was a cold and misty day. Visibility on the ground was poor. With the apron at Los Rodeos full of airplanes, overworked traffic controllers began directing incoming flights onto taxiways that were intersecting the main runway. Captain Van Zanten was KLM's most experienced 747 pilot. On the Pan Am flight, Captain Grubbs had trouble locating the correct taxiway in reduced visibility. Van Zanten was maneuvering towards takeoff. He asked for takeoff clearance and was told to stand by. Now, whether he misheard the instruction or ignored it, Van Zanten proceeded to go. The KLM plan at full throttle struck the other plane. All 248 people on board KLM 4805 were killed, and most of the passengers on Pan Am died as well. Muffled instructions in an overcrowded airport played roles too, but perhaps the major factor was the pilot's misunderstanding the instructions from the control tower. Just like the Los Rodeos airport disaster, history is riddled with countless examples of failures resulting from misunderstanding. Let's now see how the string tool can ensure less disaster management and a smoother journey to successful task completion. Every task you take is like a journey, starting from when you depart from your home and ending at your destination. On the journey there can be lots of challenges, from which you need to be proactive and take precautionary actions. Step 1. Start with the end result. Step 2. Determine all the things that could possibly go wrong. These are your red flags and your deadly do nots. Step 3. These are the precautionary measures that you will have to take to sidestep or bust each red flag. Step 4. Determine the pillar tasks. Now, pillar tasks are the different divisions or functions, for example, finance, marketing, or customer relations. Step 5. List the steps of every pillar task and organize sequentially. Step 6. Determine the task completion point, the last task in the process whereby everything is cleaned and put back where it came from, leaving no sign that a task was ever performed there. Step 7. Always determine the ideal OI level required for the task performer. Step number 8. Identify which staff members are taskman fit and color code them with stickers to match them with the task. Step number 9. If someone's not a high enough OI level to be taskman fit, they must consider a crutch for competence. This crutch could be someone who fills the gap, or a device that assists you to ensure that the task is perfectly done according to norms and standards. Draw the crutch icon on the sticker for the person who needs a crutch for competence. Step number 10. Find a taskman fit expert from outside to fill a role. And step number 11. Choose the most important step on your list that, if executed poorly, could jeopardize the success of the entire task.
So a task is like the string. It's like a journey, and it has got a beginning, starting point and it's got an end result. But we can't start with a starting point. We've got to start with the end result. We've got to start with the end before we start with the beginning. Why is that? Because if you start by the start, then you basically don't know where you're going and you haven't set your GPS coordinates properly. You've got to know exactly where you're going. You've got to be able to visualize and picture what it looks like when you successfully completed the task before you start the task. So, end result is critically important. You've got to think about the visual picture. You've got to think what it looks like. What is the impact, the outcome? What is the depth, the width, the breadth of the end result? So if you are saying bake a cake for an Indian wedding for 75 people, then you've got to visualize exactly what that type of cake within that cultural setting looks like and how would those people enjoy it. Just look at that wedding moment as if you're looking at a video. And everyone that is participating in this task needs to have that same visualization. You've got to know what was the budget of that cake. They've got to know what portions and how many pieces they would eat at the cake. They've got to know how big the pieces of the cake is. They've got to know what color the cake is. So everything in the end result except the how, because the string tool is how to bake the cake. But the end result is actually the what, the when, by when, how much, the quantitative elements of the cake. And then also the outcome and also the impact of the feeling that people get when they eat that cake.
Now let's have a look at the elements of a string tool. But first, it's important to understand that the complexity of the project will determine the complexity of the string tool. For instance, a string tool for baking a cake will follow a single string. On the other hand, the production of a Vogue Fashion Dubai experience is a far more complex process, as team members from 13 different countries had to work together to achieve a single result. The string tool for this event will branch off into a variety of string tools, each one with their own end result, but all combined into one event aimed to achieve an overall end result. But to keep things simple, let's now develop the string tool for baking a chocolate cake.
Now, pillar tasks would be like divisions, very specific intelligences that is required for the different facets and components of baking the cake. So the first pillar task would be planning, searching for the right recipe that fits the requirement of the client, that can be done in quantities, and analyzing what raw materials and what utensils and what decorations would be required. That would be the planning phase. Also the planning of the time, planning of the delivery, etc. Then the second division of the pillar task would be to procure the raw materials and the utensils that's maybe still required. So that means you've got to have a driver's license and you've got to know places to be able to find the right ingredients at the right prices within the budget and bringing it back to the table so that the production can start. The next pillar task would be production. So production would be to take out all the utensils, all the raw materials, and then sequentially producing the cake, mixing the right quantities and the right ingredients together so that it all comes together and ready for putting it into the oven. Then another pillar task would be the baking process. The baking process in itself is a specific process. You can't ignore it. But maybe somebody else did the production and somebody else can handle the baking and bringing it out of the oven in the right way, with the right color, and then making sure that it cools down. And then the next pillar task would be the decoration, and that could be a very artistic type of task, very different to the mixing of the ingredients. And then there could be a final pillar task that is delivery and customer relationships. So that would be the pillar tasks of baking a cake. The next third process of a string tool is the red flag. The red flag process is to analyze under every pillar task, to analyze what can go wrong, what are the risks. So it's not always in your ability to know what the risks would be, because maybe you don't have a lot of experience. We always say somebody needs to have 5 years of experience before you really know the risks, because you've got to go through experience and make mistake and fail forward. So the ideal thing to do when you are dealing with the red flags would be to find other humans who you can consult and that can tell you what can go wrong. Let's say you are doing aquaponics on a farm. You need to find people who has experienced aquaponics. You can go Google it. That's also a very good idea to analyze the risks, but you would find some solutions, but you might not find all the risk factors. So it's very important to go find that more mature person who's willing to tell what they've done wrong and where they've learned from mistakes, so that you don't repeat that same mistakes. The next phase of the string tool would be the precautionary actions. So that is where you become proactive about the process in your planning. You are thinking what you can put in place to prevent those red flags. We always say, for every problem, you can at least find 3 solutions. 3 precautionary actions minimum you need to put in place on your string tool to be able to know that you are ready for the mistakes that can maybe possibly creep in. The next level of the string tool would be to look at the steps of the task. Now, under every pillar task, you basically have your own string tool for the steps and the sequencing of the tasks. So you first take out the utensils, then you measure the ingredients, then you put this together and then that together. So the steps would be done with a white paper on the string tool. And all the steps you can list, and it's sometimes good to just brainstorm them in the beginning and then thereafter to sequence the tasks and step by step and this sequence after the sequence. And that is why we use the pegs, so that it's a fluid process. You can every now and then you can make a change and say, no, it's better to do this step before that step. And everybody would be on the same page, because a string tool is a visual process. And remember, visual is in front of your face. Everyone can see it. Everyone participates. And nobody can say, oh, but you didn't tell me so. It's in your face, and everybody can decide together that they are changing the sequence, for example. TCP is the next step. TCP stands for Task Completion Point. Task completion point is the last step of every pillar task step sequencing. That last step, sometimes people forget it or they are unconscious of it. Let us take the task of baking a cake. The last step of baking a cake is not putting on the icing sugar. The last step is washing the dishes. Thereafter, to take those dishes and put them back inside the cupboard and close the doors of the cupboard. So basically closing the door of the cupboard is that last step, because you rehabilitate the task from where you took out the utensils and the ingredients, and now you've got to put it back to where it came from, and that is the last step. Very often people have got problems or they fight with each other about the lack of understanding of TCP. The next phase would be to decide what OI levels you require for every step and every task. So you're going to quickly go through and say, I require A3, which means the person must be master level on this task. Or you can decide A2, and then you write it on the card. That person can be half perfect, as long as we give the person some help, and we'll talk about that just now. So first determine on what OI level you require those tasks to be. Once you've done that, the next level is to look inside your organization and to see who do we have that already is working with us in this project. Who do we have that's a little bit further afar? Maybe they are not working in the project, but they're working in the organization. That is perfectly task man fit. And once you've got them, you can put a sticker with the color. So each one of them must have a color sticker. You put it on those papers so that they can in one shot see, oh, I'm involved there, I'm involved there, I'm involved there, and they can see themselves in this whole holistic approach to doing a task. The next level is where you're going to realize that there's not enough people who are task man fit. So they are not task man fit. They might be one OI level lower than the required level that you need for that task. What are you going to do then? You are going to take the stickers that are called crutches for competence. It looks like a little crutch. And now you're going to take existing people in the organization that is maybe just one level lower. You can never put people in a task that is 2 levels away from task man fit. So you will put that person with their sticker color, but you're going to then add the crutch, the sticker of the crutch. And the crutch means, we better do something to give that person a type of a buddy system or a jig or a template or some crutch to help to do that task successfully. And that person also knows, I can never do this task all by myself because I am not task man fit. I will mess it up. And then they will talk and they'll say, please help me. What can we do to give me a crutch so that I can perform this task successfully? The next step in the string tool process is to find power partners. Now you realize that you've got all the people in the organization involved, but you still need somebody to help you with very specific tasks, and you don't have task man fit. Now you've got to consider power partners. So a power partner is somebody that is very good at the task, expert, task man fit, but that comes from outside. You might have to contract people in, subcontract people, or you've got to get consultants or value exchange with other people from other organizations to come and help you that knows how to do that task exactly right. A power partner is a very important player because it also brings new blood into the process and freshness. So it's a very important part that you must not neglect and think you don't have a budget and therefore you're not going to bring in the power partner. The next step is called the grab ability factor. Grab sounds like action. It sounds like somebody that really takes some bull by the horns and gets it right. So the grab ability is really a person with the exact right volitional levels and occupational intelligence levels. And in some part of this whole string tool, you will find that one step or maybe 2 steps, usually not more than 2 steps, would be the most important steps, and you've got to have the exact right human being to do that task. And if it's done in a mediocre way, your whole project is going to fail. Grab ability is the ability to deal with something that you will persevere and have tenacity and intelligence and creativity, and you will get it right. So I can give you an example of grab ability. In my previous life, I was a fashion designer, and I was making happy pants and trying to roll out happy pants into the world. And I did not know about the grab ability factor. We had designers that were textile designers that came up with the most amazing designs for the materials. I got a very big loan from the business partners that is a type of a lending organization that could help us until we made profit. We even had access to Woolworths and to Pick n Pay clothing to bring the prototypes into the shops. But we did not know what was the grab ability factor. We never did a proper string tool. And after millions of rands, the Happy Pants project failed dismally because of the grab ability factor. So what was the grab ability factor? We did have pillar tasks, and the one pillar task that we thought was the grabbability factor was marketing. Yes, and it was under marketing, but it was a very small little subdivision of marketing, and it was called brand ambassador. If we had a brand ambassador that could bring this out into the world, then people would have followed the brand ambassador. Because when it comes to clothing, people don't have the confidence to just wear any funky type of outfit. But if somebody else does, then they become the followers of that trend, and then that starts bringing the clothing in the market. And that was where we failed, the grabbability factor. So what makes string tool planning very, very different from ordinary strategic planning or just developing a digitized plan that you give to everybody? It's very, very different. Yes, it was homegrown in Africa. We started with string tools under the trees, and we could set up a string tool where everybody collectively takes ownership over the end result. There are no more blind spots when you do a string tool. The truth is, all of us participated, we took co-ownership. You cannot say, I didn't know. You cannot say, I didn't have time. You cannot say, I'm carrying too much load. We cannot say that we didn't have the budget. Everything gets dealt with within a string tool, and every player has to participate to ensure that all the blind spots are sorted out and no misunderstandings, no misalignments, and no wrong expectations. And the end result would be the end result that we planned to do.
Let's summarize some important advantages of a string tool. Everyone takes co-ownership of the end result. The string tool is visual and in your face. The task performance journey stays flexible. Just adjust the peg sequences. There can be no more excuses. You cannot make a mistake. That means there are no more blind spots. A string tool is simple, not intimidating like a business plan. Your staff are never alone. All are collectively accountable for the success of the end result. The result of the Taskman Fit analysis tool is that we can present a realistic business plan based on our occupational intelligences. Based on OI, it promotes a truth culture. If you are not Taskman Fit, you admit it. The collective will then design a crutch, or you'll be repositioned for optimum value. The end result will be successful as planned. A string tool doesn't have to cost a lot, but it's an invaluable tool.